the 2026 FIFA World Cup after 4 CFU teams were drawn in Group B for the third and final round of the CONCACAF qualifying. The draw took place on Thursday evening with top-seeded Jamaica joined by Trinidad and Tobago, Curacao and Bermuda. Now, both Jamaica and TNT have competed at the World Cup before, the Reggae Boys qualifying for France 1998 and the Soca Warriors for Germany in 2006. But Bermuda and Curacao are hunting their first qualification. Now, the 3 group winners will automatically qualify for the 2026 FIFA World Cup to be co-hosted by the USA, Canada and Mexico, who all have byes. Now, let's look at the other groups, starting with Group A, where Panama will be favorites to get to their second World Cup finals after their 2018 appearance. They will be joined by El Salvador, who have featured in 2 World Cups, along with Guatemala and Suriname, who will both be hoping for a maiden berth at football's global showpiece. Now, Group C will be very competitive as well, with 6-time World Cup participants, Costa Rica leading the pack, but must be wary of Honduras, who have qualified on 3 occasions, Haiti, who also have a qualification under their belt, and Nicaragua, who will be hungry to grace the stage for the first time. Now, the third round qualifiers will begin in the FIFA international window in September and conclude in November, with each team set to play 6 matches, that's home and away, against each group opponent. Our in-house football analyst, Leger Williams, is with us in studio. And with all this football World Cup talk, we had to enlist a man who has featured in one himself, former TNT international defender Brent Sancho. I have a sneaky feeling that both will be very interested in Group B. Brent, shall I start with you as a man who graced the World Cup stage before, TNT taking a completely or a considerably different path to the World Cup in Germany in 2006. This setup, different qualification setup, also minus key competitors, Mexico, the USA and Canada, because they are hosts. But how did the draw grab you last night?
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned the format, and you're correct. When we qualified, it was the Hex, and we did have to play quite a few games home and away. We did have a very slow start, as you may recall, inclusive of a drubbing in Guatemala. I believe it was 6-0 back then. This does not allow you for such. It's not as many games and in a shorter period of time. And so for any team in that Group B, starting quickly will be the key. That being said, from a Trinidad and Tobago perspective, I don't think it could have gone any better for them. Maybe you could have looked at the likes of El Salvador, a team that we traditionally do well against in that group. But in terms of the competitors in Group B, I think there were a lot of happy Trimbigonians throughout, believing the fact that this could be an opportunity for us to qualify for a World Cup.
Yeah, can I take a minute to provoke you, Brent, because most football fans looking at the draw are labeling TNT and Jamaica as the 2 big teams in the group. And I'm suggesting that Curacao should not be overlooked. The last time Curacao played Trinidad and Tobago, which was about a year and a half ago, they beat them by 5-3 in a Nations League match. The last Caribbean Cup tournament was won by Curacao, beating Jamaica in the final. They have a lot of players currently competing in the Eredivisie in the Dutch league. And Dick Advocaat, their coach, is the most accomplished coach in the group. I don't think any coach of the Netherlands have won more matches for the Netherlands than he has. So am I onto something here that Curacao has to be respected?
I think more than respected, yeah, they have to be looked at as a genuine opponent to win this group as well and to move forward. And as you rightfully said, and you look at the results, inclusive, and I would have to add a 5-1 drubbing of Haiti in their last fixture, you would have to suggest that they're more than just competitors in this group. They are ones as well, similar to the celebrations that in Trinidad and Tobago and in Jamaica are probably feeling the same way, that they could steal this group as well. As you rightfully mentioned, they have had a good tale of fortune between, of course, against Trinidad and Tobago and Jamaica, and the kind of players that they currently have, and I will have to add as well, guys, the kind of players that they can call upon, because with the fact that they can dip into that diaspora pool, there's no stopping them from adding to the current player pool that they have between now and September.
Yeah, I'm going to bring in Leger now. And Leger, I have to admit, since the World Cup qualifiers draw yesterday, I've been in such a good mood. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I'm just realizing that it's getting closer to one of our Caribbean countries making the World Cup. And it just brings back so much memories. I always say to Brent when he's on the show and we're talking about World Cup, I don't think he understood the joy that the entire country, and I'm speaking about Trinidad and Tobago, felt when they qualified for that World Cup. So I'm going to ask you now for your initial thoughts when you saw the group. Were you as happy as I am?
Yeah, no, I was over the moon personally, being a Jamaican. I think that, with all the respect to Trinidad, Trinidad and Jamaica typically have some very tight encounters. Sir Lance would have mentioned the quality that Curaçao have. Brent would have mentioned the quality, the more quality that they can get. And, Bermuda are playing some really good stuff as well. But I think when you look at the teams that Jamaica, and Trinidad as well, would have avoided in that draw, I think both of the teams, every team in that group would look at it and say it's a really good opportunity to go to a World Cup. And, from a Jamaican perspective, I don't think they could have asked for a better opportunity to get to the World Cup next year. And, it's very interesting, you mentioned the feelings that you would have felt in 2006. Unfortunately for me, I was born a couple of months after Jamaica went to the World Cup, after they qualified, probably a full year after they would have qualified for the World Cup, a couple of months after the finals. I haven't experienced the euphoric nature that can come from a team qualifying for a World Cup. So hopefully in a few months' time, I can get to experience that myself.
You say that, and I just thought to myself, I have a lot of respect for you because you follow teams that you've never
including
seen,
this one?
Including Arsenal, it's something that you have. It's a thing that you do.
Yeah, I don't typically make very good life choices, but I made one good one, and now I'm here on this set.
All right, well, good to hear that. And Liz, what I don't want people to do is underestimate any of the teams in any of the groups, right? Because football, as they say, is always played on the day, and that is so true, because I always tend to say that and I'll just use the Premier League for an example. Whenever a Manchester United is going up against one of the teams that you'll call an underdog, these underdog teams find that grit within them, and of course most times are able to topple over the so-called big teams, and it's something that we'd have to watch very carefully in these World Cup qualifiers as well. Lance spoke about Curaçao, but I just want to take on Bermuda as well, because I know this show is also loved in Bermuda, and they'll be watching to hear what we think about their squad.
Yeah, and they really have been playing some really good football, a very modern approach to how they play the game, and I think they're very deserved, in terms of getting to this stage. They've been putting in good performances, and they'll make it very difficult, I think, for each of the teams in this group, especially when teams when they go away to Bermuda. I think it's going to be really difficult. And just generally speaking, as I said, the underdog mentality of some of the teams in the group, and Brent would know very well also, when we speak about, because I'm in group chats with a lot of my friends, and obviously they're pretty happy with the draw as well, saying, Jamaica, they should get 16, 18 points from this group. And I'm saying, slow down.
What?
Wait a minute. Because I know that when Jamaica rock up into Trinidad, when Jamaica rock up into Curaçao, when Jamaica go to Bermuda, it's going to be extremely difficult, especially in Trinidad, because of that rivalry. Both teams could be having nothing to play for. We're still going to see 20,000 plus in Trinidad, and it's going to be a very hostile environment. So I think every point in this group will have to be fought for, and it's going to be very difficult nonetheless.
Yeah, and Brent, as he speaks about that 20,000 fans, based on what we saw from the last match, we can assure Leger that he's going to be in for a treat, because our Trinis are going to come out and support.
No, look, Lee's hit a very valuable point. You see it all the time. A form guide goes out the window when Barcelona plays Real Madrid, when Everton plays Liverpool, when Manchester United plays Manchester City. Doesn't matter how poorly that team is playing. When they meet their rival, there's an added emphasis, an added oomph as a player. There's a lot riding in it. There's a lot involved and invested in it. And that's going to happen certainly when Trinidad plays Jamaica. It is going to be that sort of game. It's a game that me as a player, we relish as players. We look forward to it. And I think that this fixture, with all the marbles to play for, is the first time in my memory that we've gotten to this particular. Of course, there was a game in Jamaica back, I believe, when Tyrone Marshall scored that screamer. After that, we've had an encounter with so much at stake. And so it's going to be riding very high on emotion. And I expect it to be a very, very competitive game. And that's what makes this group so attractive. Yes, some of the teams are not your household teams from CONCACAF, but they all have familiarity attached to it. And so each game will be eagerly fought for. And I think it will be an interesting group.
Yeah, Brent, let's widen the discussion a little bit then. And when you look at the three groups, which would you consider to be the toughest of them all?
That's a tough one. I do feel that Group A may be the one. I think Honduras is such a difficult team to play against. They're always very competitive when it comes to World Cup qualifiers. They're always competitive when you play them at home. But I just feel that group there in particular, that Guatemala, El Salvador, you're not sure what you're going to get from Suriname. Very, very similar to Curacao. They can improve and widen their player pool. We've seen them and we've seen their upward movement in CONCACAF. And of course, Panama has been certainly now made it a top four. We always talk about Mexico, USA, and Costa Rica. You're gonna have to add a Panama, and of course, Canada is also around there. So I think that Group A for me is the more testy and challenging one because there's a lot of rivalry in there. But I think overall you will see some very intriguing encounters. And I think the remarkable thing about this is these teams don't have a lot of time. You're talking about September. There's a Gold Cup going on, so there's a lot at stake. There's a lot to do. There's a lot going to happen in that short space of time. But there is going to certainly be some exciting World Cup qualifiers in CONCACAF come September.
Yeah, Ligia, are you agreeing?
Now, I'd actually lean Group C. Obviously, Group B is the most intriguing to us here on set and to Brent as well. But I think Group C, in terms of the current quality of each of the teams, I think that's going to be the tightest one for me. Honduras, they've been doing really well in getting to World Cups as of late. Costa Rica have been to the most in terms of all the teams in this current pool. Haiti, I've always been impressed with them when I watch them play. And then Nicaragua, especially going to Nicaragua, is always extremely difficult. So I think when you look at the current quality of all four of those teams, I think that's the closest we'll see. And the types of games we'll see will be very physical as well. So I think that's what you can call the group of death. Group A, extremely tight as well. But for sure, the group of intrigue is Group B.
Yeah, and Brent, I thought you made a very important point in terms of the window that these matches will be played. September will be the first international window, but then by November we will know the teams that are qualified automatically for the World Cup. How is that likely to impact these teams and how they prepare and how they go about these matches? And especially because it's not like the previous format. You are unlikely to recover if you do not start well come September, where I suspect we'll have two back-to-back matches over the course of 4 or 5 days.
Tremendously. It does tremendously. That's what makes this so difficult. At the end of the day, any one of the teams can have 4 or 5 major injuries, 3 or 4 major injuries. I've seen it right across CONCACAF where teams have started well in the Nations League in the October, September windows, and then all of a sudden, when it comes to March, they're more to the bottom of the table. And why? Because they've had injuries in the domestic leagues and the players playing and all those sorts of situations that happen. So you have to keep a close eye on it. And that's why I said it's a very small window, yes, but a lot can happen. And as I mentioned, the likes of course, Curacao and Bermuda, who has also dipped into their diaspora, can expand their player pool. All of a sudden, 2 or 3 players. One player that is being kicked about in the Curacao media is Patrick Kluivert's son. I don't know how much truth there is to that, but that tells you the sort of ambition that the sort of reach, that this Curacao team will have. So yes, it is intriguing in terms of the group and what it's setting. But come September, you're going to have to keep a close eye. As I said, these things change quite quickly. Injuries to players, drop in form, all these things are variables that are uncontrollable to teams and to coaches. So it's going to be very intriguing when September comes around.
Yeah, and we're out of time, Brent. So one more quick one in 30 seconds. Given everything that you have just said, does it in any way you feel change the way coaches will likely approach the Gold Cup? From, of course, it's a competition that generally you want to win, and I suspect that the teams will want to win as well. But are there more important things going into this Gold Cup campaign?
I think each team has different needs. For example, Trinidad and Tobago has to find the right solutions to keep the balance defensively and be a bit more compact. So I think for Dwight York, even if he doesn't get out of the group stages, he'll be happy with a solid defensive display. I think for Jamaica, confidence building, winning, and going far in the Gold Cup will be important to them because they would want that momentum going into the qualifiers. So as I said, and I just mentioned those two teams, every other team has their horses for courses. So it will be viewed and looked at differently, certainly for September in mind. And so it will also change the way people do things in the Gold Cup as well.
Yeah. All right, Brent, we're going to leave it there. Thanks for linking with us on this topic, a topic that you are perfectly qualified to discuss. And there'll be a lot of discussion on this World Cup qualifying CONCACAF schedule in the coming months. Thanks, Brent. We'll talk again soon. Liz will be sticking around with the CONCACAF Gold Cup preview as well.
Are you suggesting that others are not perfectly qualified?
I said perfectly because he played in the World Cup.
Yes, but
which makes him uniquely qualified.
Oh, uniquely
in comparison to our other
So why did you use the word
guests.
perfectly?
One of the same in the context of the point that I was making.
Oh, I'm not sure, but I prefer uniquely.
Ricardo, you're always trying to provoke Liz.
Yeah, that's why I'm happy that Donald ate his mangoes.
Hold on, did I call his name?
No, you didn't. You didn't.
Okay,
you
ask
didn't.
Donald Oliver if I called his name.
No, you did not.
Good one. You're on fire today, Ricardo.
Anyways, it's break time. We'll be back with more football, and Liz will be with us still.